Hi boys and girls, we are going to start working on the second part of our weaving project today. So you will need paper, several pieces. You will also need scissors. If you have a ruler, that works great. If not, an extra piece of paper to make a straight edge is also perfect. You will also need some crayons or markers if you don't have colored paper, so that way you can kind of make your own. So we're gonna make the loom first, and the loom is where you do all your weaving. I like to use a light colored piece of paper for this because it's a lot easier to see that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my camera so that you guys can see my workspace. It's been a little strange this morning. Hopefully this works. Alright, and then I'm going to start with my white piece of paper. It's just a piece of construction paper, but copy paper works just fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the two short sides up to touch each other. And if you need help folding, you can always do that. You want the corners to touch as much as possible, and then you're gonna fold, okay? So if this is like a book, you've got the folded side and the open side where you have pages. So on this open side, you're gonna draw a straight line. Like I said, if you don't have a ruler, you can just use the edge of another piece of paper. And I'm gonna make it about 1 inch. You don't want it too close to that open side. You want it pretty straight. Okay, and I'm just going to use one of my markers. Alright, so this is the stop line. I'm even going to write stop. No more cutting after that line. Okay, then you're going to draw your warp threads, the threads that are already up and down on the loom. Okay, so you want them to be at least about a finger's width. You don't want them to be too skinny. I'm going to make mine in blue just so you can kind of see the difference there. So about the width of a finger. You can make them zigzag, you can make them wavy. Just make sure that, like I said, they're not too close together. Alright, and they go from the fold to that stop sign. Alright, so if I turn the paper that way, this is what your loom looks like so far. Alright, so now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut my loom. Keep it folded. And if you made a Chinese lantern before, similar technique. So I'm going to keep it folded. I'm stopping cutting when I get to that line. Okay, just stay on your lines. Believe it or not, this is kind of the easy part of weaving. Alright. And if you do cut too far, you can always kind of tape it back together. That shouldn't really be a problem. Alright, so now what you're going to do is you're going to open it up and you have a loom. If you have made a Chinese lantern before, you kind of turn it backwards like this and make the lantern shape. But this is our loom and our warp thread, the warp threads that go up and down. Okay, if I turn it over, looks like that. So now we're going to make the weft threads. You can use whatever paper you have. I have some of Brooklyn's construction paper. This one looks like she scribbled on it when she was a lot younger, so that would be kind of cool. You just want the paper to be as long as your warp threads. So it should go from this end of my paper to this end. All right. You can cut some that are longer, of course, but you don't want any that are shorter. So you can draw them first if you want, or you can just start cutting. You could also make some of these zigzag or wavy. I'm just going to make them straight just to help you guys out. Again, you don't want these any skinnier than a finger either. I like to say 2 fingers, but 1 finger would be okay if you're really brave. But 2 works really well. Like I said, the markers are there to help you color or draw patterns or designs if you want. And you should not need glue, because if we were doing this for the sake of making fabric, we would not put staples or tape or glue in our clothing or fabric. So no glue, none of that. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to take these strips, and if you want to make a pattern, you can make a pattern. The basic pattern that we're doing is over, under, which means you're going to start by going over the first warp thread, under the second warp thread, over the third warp thread, under the fourth. Okay, so you can do this with me. Over, pick it up, under, and you just kind of slide it in between. Over number 3, under number 4, over, under, and if something tears, it's okay. Like I said, you can get some tape and fix it. All right, and then you just push it to the top. All right, so that's our first one. It kind of is giving us that every other piece pattern. That's where the over under comes in. For your second one, you start the opposite direction. So I'm going to start with blue. This time I'm starting it underneath my first one. So the opposite from the first one. So you're going to have an alternating opposite pattern, like an AB pattern, going across, over, under, as well as going down, over, under. And if you do a color pattern, you're going to have that pattern too. So you might possibly have 3 patterns on your paper. All right. So this is my second one. Under, over. It should kind of look like a checkerboard. It should have that every other space look to it. And you just have to be careful when you're handling the paper that you are gentle enough that you don't rip it. This is pretty old construction paper. It's not the nice heavy duty stuff we have at school, so it might rip easier, so I'm trying to be careful. Now, if you're like me and you make mistakes pretty easy, so if I'm just talking and telling you guys what to do, which you guys have seen me do this plenty of times in school, and I make a mistake, the best thing about weaving is you don't even have to erase. You just go back and fix it. So if I look at this, all of a sudden, my blue and my brown are suddenly matching. They are not opposite anymore. Oh, if I go back and look, here I have over, under, over. That's easy to fix. I just pull it back out, start again, and fix it. Okay, so that's the great part about weaving is if you make a mistake, you just go backwards, fix it. Nobody will ever know that that mistake was there. Okay, so you keep doing this all the way down. Now, like I said, this one looks kind of interesting because it's got those details there. Now, if you want to really get fancy and you want to cut some skinnier pieces, you can kind of layer up your weaving. And if you look in the document in Schoology that says start here and has the directions, there's some videos in there, and one of them is called Advanced Weaving, and it kind of gives you this more advanced information. So if you want to do like some over top of others, in that advanced video she tells you how to do this too. So you can kind of layer some like this. So you have this yellow on top of the blue. Ooh. So that's an option there for you as well. Okay. Now, when you get down to the bottom and when you're all done, if you would like to secure the ends, which means if you want to keep them from coming out, you can use a glue stick or some tape on the back side, and you can keep these pieces from coming out. But if you've done it all the way to where you can't fit any more at the bottom, they shouldn't really come out. Okay, so if I hold this up, these aren't going to come loose. All right, they're pretty tight in there because I've got the pattern correct. All right, so if you want, like I said, you can put a little bit of glue stick underneath of these ends on the back and on the front, really, because you have to glue down both sides. But you should not need to. So if that's not an option for you, don't worry about that. But now you've got a weaving. If you look up those videos, it can show you a little bit more. At school, I was planning on us doing some basket weaving with cups, and there is a video that says cup basket weaving, and that would give you a little bit more information about that. So hopefully next year in 5th grade, we can do some more with basket weaving and weaving on a loom. So boys and girls, this is our weaving project this week. We would go all the way down to the bottom. So keep working on that. Remember to share what you've made in our 4th grade weaving project part 2 Flipgrid. And I look forward to seeing you boys and girls next week. Bye.